Hello, welcome to our
Couch talk.
our podcast slash couch talk, where we talk about everything and anything to do with mental health, therapy, communication, especially when it comes to our friends and family, where those are the people that really matter to us. And we wanted to start this channel to give you some insight on the stuff we go through, in hopes that it gives insight on what you might be going through, in case you've got your own challenges and problems and you're looking for answers, you're looking for ways to handle it, make it better. And I'm not saying that we're perfect, we have all sorts of challenges ourselves, but the one thing that I can say we're really good at doing is really good at finding ways to make it better. Not just for us and our own families, but create a win-win where whoever we're talking to, in this case, we're going to talk about you and your son, where it's not just like mom wins, son loses, but instead it becomes like a win-win, where they both get to walk away from the conversation feeling good about themselves and each other. So there's unity there. There's a connection that's sustained in the family, right? So that was the long-winded introduction. Ms. Fong, can you tell us today what specifically did you want to share?
Like how much impact we as parents have on our children, accidentally, subconsciously, not aware of how we show up in front of them. And now they're older. Oh my God, how did they get there? I realize I make a lot of, well, I didn't mean to, right? I made a lot of mistake saying things accidentally in front of my kids. And for example, one of them was, my son one day was playing piano, practicing piano. Okay. As a mother, we always, my habit is, to show them love. I give you food, right? I bought him some snack and put it beside, the piano. If he want to have a snack, he can have, one while he was playing. So as I was giving to him when I left, and as I was leaving, I didn't hear him say, "Thank you, Mom," right? Because I know my son is very polite outside the home. And the neighbor would come and tell me, "Oh, your son is so polite. You say thank you. Everywhere he goes outside, your son is polite." That moment, I said, he didn't say thank you. I bought him food. He could easily just say, "Thank you, Mom." He did. So instead, I turn around. I want to know, because I want him to have some courtesy, even with me. So I asked him, "You did," kindly, of course, "Oh, you didn't say thank you." Immediately he said, "We are families, Mom. We don't need to say thank you." All of a sudden, wow, who told him that? And then I think back to how we, as family, when we have people come over, we have people come over all the time. My mom, my in-laws, and when they come over, we would easily, casually say, "Oh, make yourself at home. You don't need to bring things. It's okay to say we're family. You don't need to do that." We so casually just say that, whether we mean it or just want to make our guests comfortable, make them welcome. And now my son, probably, to my assumption, probably took that as, because we're family, we don't need to say thank you. But in my heart, I do want him to say thank you. I realize I'm the closest to you. You are so nice to strangers. Strangers are not, do not pay for your bills. They don't take care of you. I want that kind of, love and care. So what I learned was how I program him was how he turned out now. So the message is, be careful as parents how we act in front of them, especially when they were young, from 0 to 7, because pretty close to him, my son, right? They will absorb everything what we do and then show up, whether you like it or not. But the good news is, I'm able, as an NLP practitioner, I'm able to recognize all is my responsibility. Yes, he probably learned that from outside, but majority of the things that our kids learn is because of us, because we are the closest to them. So what that means is we still have chances to influence them to be someone better. And instead of like most people, I'm not saying that, most majority of people blaming the outside, a factor that they have to change. If they have to change, then we have no power, right? So instead of blaming my son, I didn't get mad at him. I looked back inside. I raised him. This is what I did, and the pattern that I have to change. So something I learned.
I think that's super valuable because, what you're really referring to is what Bob Proctor used to say way back in the day. So Bob Proctor was the guy that was on The Secret. He's got his own personal development coaching program, still runs even though he's passed away. But he talked about something a long time ago. We all know this, right? It's the old monkey see, monkey do. You just wrapped it up to that, just monkey see, monkey do. So kids and even adults will rarely do what we tell them, but they'll always copy how we act. My old coach, when I was 17, said something. He said, Alan, if you're gonna be a leader, make sure that you have twice as good and only half as bad that you want your people to have to follow. Because your followers will always do twice your bad and only half your good. That's a gross generalization, of course. But it really gets you to think, like if you can adopt that idea, it really gets you more self-aware about how you present yourself to people in life, especially to our kids, like the ones that really matter to us the most. Who matters more than our children, right?
Because they were born with not much, right? Whatever they have experienced, we provide to them.
Right. Especially when they're from 0 to 7, there's so much research out there that talks about how open a child's mind is and how they don't even have a conscious as in an awareness of themselves.
Not until 7 years old.
Not until after 7. Yeah. So from 0 to 7, they're taking everything in and it's reality. So if you tell them, like my dad told me this when I was young, for example, I used to drink a lot of Coke, like Coca-Cola. And my dad, Coke. And my dad said to me, son, if you drink too much Coke, your blood will start to turn black. I was sitting in the back of the car, we were just getting out of the doctor's office, and I remember thinking to myself, Dad, really? He's like, and it was like a straight dead face. He looks at me in the rear view mirror. Yep. And I thought, holy crap, what's gonna happen if my blood turns black? I might get more sick. I might have to come to the doctors more often. Oh, geez, I might die. And so instantly, I started thinking, I'm not gonna drink Coke anymore. When my mom came home, we had Coke always in the fridge. Filipino growing up, that's what Filipinos have. Amongst the many things, ketchup and Coke is common for them, for us. And Mom asked me to pull out the Coke at the time, and I told her, Mom, make sure you don't drink too much Coke. Don't drink too much Coke, okay? And she's like, why? It's like, the Dad told me, if you have too much Coke, your blood's gonna turn black. And she laughed at me. I was like, why? What's so funny? And she's like, what are you, crazy? It's not gonna turn black. Who told you that? Dad did. He's fooling you. He's fooling me. Like when you're young, you don't know. Everything is just real. So it's an elongated story, but it's proof that if we're not careful on what we teach our kids, both consciously and what we're not aware of, our habits do get passed down to them, which is so valuable to you and to me, to all of us, because who would have figured that something as simple as just not saying please or thank you could actually have such an impact on us later on in life?
No, only at home, but he was so good outside.
Yeah, well, that's sometimes even worse. Like for me, I can relate to what you said because I grew up in an environment where everybody in my household was nicer to the public. They were kinder to strangers or to co-workers or friends. But when we came home, it was really destructive. It was always negative. It was constantly like, this isn't good enough. You're not doing it right. You're not good enough.
Yeah.
And as I got older, I started thinking to myself, I thought, why is that? Why is it that when I was growing up in a household, and no disrespect to my parents, they meant well. They did the best they could. Okay, there's no disrespect. Mom, you ever see this video? I love you. Not being disrespectful at all. But this is the stuff I grew up thinking about. Like, why is it that our family's just so much kinder to outsiders? But at home, we don't say please and thank you. Not oftenly, at least. And when there's an issue, we don't talk about it to resolve it. So when I got older, I told myself, I said, when I have a family, if there's an issue, we're laying it out on the table. We're not going to scream, yell. We're going to talk about it. We're going to clear the air. We're not going to leave until that issue is resolved.
You did really well with your daughter. I mean,
and as a result,
I'm bragging here.
My daughter is amazing at communication now. When there's an issue, she doesn't always bring it up. No, nobody's perfect. But she brings it up more often than less, to a point where now she's very expressive. And if there's an issue, she's not so afraid to talk to me about it. So even when we butt heads, and we do a lot, we don't walk away from there going, I can't stand you right now. But instead, we walk away going, you know, God, I love you. My little girl, I love you. It's just, I don't approve of this behavior, but it doesn't mean I don't love you. So no matter how bad we get in our conversations, the bond is still there. And the trust is still there. Like, there's still a high level of trust I gain from her.
You just changing the behavior.
As a result of, which now she can carry to her own friends. She does it back to us now. Now she's in that habit. Yeah, she like, when she gets bubble tea or something, she thinks about us. I came home a couple of times. And like, I was like, oh, whose is this? She's like, oh, Dad, I got that for you. Like, wow. You know, I wake up in the morning now, and instead of me making my own hot water, half the time there's already a pot ready. Just little things, right? Dad, I just did that for you just to make your day a little easier. You know, that matters to us. As parents, that matters to us, right? So I agree with what you're saying. So like, now that you had that realization, what's your suggestion on how to handle that?
Be careful what we say in front of our kids, our friends. Like you said earlier, especially when they're young, from 0 to 7, they only operate everything unconsciously, which means they take everything in without even filtering, right? And not until you were 7 years old, then your conscious mind started to come out and play, which means it filters certain things. I mean, logics, right? People think, oh, is this logical? It is right? It is wrong? Not until a child reach 7 years old. But before that, they just, like a sponge, absorb everything without even like filter anything. So whatever, they don't have the capacity to decide, is this right? Is my mom say or dad tells me to do is right or wrong? They don't have that yet. So be careful, or they absorb everything in their brain, and they will use that later on to show up as adults. That's why there's so many behaviors out there by teenagers. It's not their fault. And it's also not us as parents. We all want to become good parents. Trust me. My parents want to become good parents, but that's all they know. That's all they know, and that's all I knew too, until now I have the opportunity to recognize that's something I can still change, right? So if you listen to this, if you seeing things among your kids, among your friends, close people who are closest to you, you know, try to understand where they come from, and in this context, not judge them or put a label on them first, and see if something you can change, you can improve.
So how do you do that? Like, let's say for somebody watching right now, they're agreeing with you. They're like, yeah, you know, man. And I've heard this from my friends too, where they're like, they'll act a certain way, and then their kids are growing up, and then they see their kids doing something, and they're like, what the hell was that? Why would you say that? And then it's almost like a deer in headlights. They're like, oh shit. Two of my friends have said this. They're like, oh shit, I fucked up. And then they're just like, oh God. So, because they know the kid got it from them, right? So whether a kid's 0 to 7 or some of the more common ones we have where they're in their teens, if you could suggest to someone how to help improve their child's behavior so the communication's better at home, which then helps them just be more real out in the real world, break it down to steps. What's a handful of steps? 2, 3, 4 steps that they could take?
The two solutions from my own experience is faster solutions and slower solutions, right? So it's by environment that they can get into, start changing the way you want, by you being acting, starting showing up differently. Right? That will take some time, right? Or second, you have to be brave, be honest at that moment. You go up to your kid or your friend, be honest, look at them, and showing your vulnerability and apologize. Whatever you're acting right now is probably because of me. I raised you. I didn't know what I was doing, and that takes courage. You have to know your kids well, and you have to act with cautions, right? Just in case, you give me this, I'm acting this because of you. You have to be very careful the timing, when to talk to them, and you have to really take responsibility to let them know that you're not perfect, but there's a way that you can improve it for their own benefit. So it's 2 ways to do it.
Right, right. I totally agree with what you're saying. To add to that, how I do it at my home is if I see something that my daughter's doing. Sorry, that's too general. Let me be more detailed so it's something you can use as well. When 2020, I noticed that my daughter had a habit of just eating food. It's super small, okay? It's just not everybody thinks it's a big deal, but for me it's a big deal, so that's why I'm sharing it. I noticed that when my daughter would have her food, she would generally pick food for herself, eat for herself, and then just walk off. So it was very just like, even though she's with us, it didn't really feel like she was present with us. There were times where she was, but there was often times where it was just like, come eat, Kate, bye, go. It's almost like we weren't even there. So naturally, what I would feel, because I like being in a place where when I eat with my family, we don't necessarily have to talk the whole time. But it's nice to be able to just acknowledge each other when it's like pass the salt, or like, can you grab me a glass of water, or can I get you one? There's a little bit of interactiveness there because we're sharing the meal together. It's probably one of the few times where we actually get to spend some time together. So I like it when my family is aware of each other, right? There's some connection. So I noticed that when my daughter was not connecting with us, instead of me just saying to her, hey, I'd really like it if you just connect more, like that's the more obvious approach. I learned that if I give my daughter too much pressure, what she defines as too much pressure, she usually just disappears. So normally she would just stop talking to me, she would stay in her room more, she'd basically avoid me. And if a kid's avoiding you, well, damn, that's even harder, because now they're not in front of you to be able to influence them. So instead, what I did is I started indirectly demonstrating the kind of behavior I wanted to see in my family. So instead of talking directly to her, when we were sitting together, I would not even give her much attention, but instead I looked at her mom, and if I needed something from her mom, like let's say there was a fork, I wouldn't just say, hey, give me the fork. I would say, honey, could you please pass me the fork? So she'd go and grab me the fork, and I would say, thank you. Not make it a big deal, just, that was it. If I got up to get some water, I would say, hey, honey, do you need some water? Can I give you something to drink? And then she would either say yes or no. But no matter what she said, I'd say, okay, yeah, no problem. So there was this constant demonstration of politeness, of respect, and thoughtfulness. And at first, it made no difference. Like, to my daughter, I felt like nothing was changing. Change doesn't happen quickly. It doesn't happen overnight. Although we want it to happen overnight, right? Obviously, what parent doesn't? But it doesn't work that way. It works on their pace. So it took probably about a good year. But what I started noticing is that when my daughter would come to the table, if she wanted something, she would say, hey, could you pass me that thing over there, please? We wouldn't ask her to say please, she would just start to do it.
Monkey see, monkey do.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
Or start to monkey see, monkey do.
Yeah, or if she had to leave to go, like, let's say, go play games or like do something after, before she would just pick up and go. But after, what she would do, like now, she'd be like, oh, I'm sorry, I don't mean to leave early. Like, she would explain, I have to go and talk to my friend now about something, okay, so I just want you to know. So she's acknowledging the fact that our emotions matter. And as a result, we're not sitting there just going, okay, what the fuck? Because that was the common problem before. It was like, what, you just get up and leave? Like, what the hell? Like, sometimes it's okay, sometimes it's appropriate. Sometimes she has to get up and go to work right away. And she's just thinking about her work. You can tell she's flustered. When there's a reason, it's fine. But if there's no reason, if it's just the habit, that's where we're having challenges. But thankfully, in short, by demonstrating to my daughter what kind of behavior I believed was appropriate for our family, and her not feeling pressure about it, that was key. I wasn't doing it just to teach her, like, hey, look, this is how I'm doing it. It wasn't like that. I genuinely want to show respect to her mother. And her mother genuinely wants to show that back to me. So it just triggers her to realize, oh, okay, well, there's more than one way of talking to people. It doesn't have to be so like, it's me and you. It's like this separation thing, right? So in short, if we want to see our kids change, essentially we have to demonstrate the change, but do it in a way that's sincere, non-directed to them, because sometimes it's too much. And the big one that everyone's got, even I have challenges with today, but I'm growing as well. Be patient enough until we start to see the progression happen.
Just like working out in the gym. Oh,
yeah,
I'm not gaining,
muscles don't grow overnight.
I'm not losing.
Body fat loss doesn't happen overnight.
Some of the ladies ask, I'm not losing. It's
right.
been a week.
Right, yeah, exactly.
I apologize if I give that example.
Yeah, no, but it's true, and it's understandable because people don't always know or realize patience is required, right? But that's the way life is built, and we've just learned to play within the game instead of try to control the game when we don't have control over the rules. We've just learned the rules and learned to work with it. And patience is one of them, especially when it comes to our kids.
Yes.
Right?
It's good talk.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. I hope you get something out of it. It's so important right now, especially with what's going on out there, and our kids are our next generation, right? There's something we can do. I think I'd always be a parent. Something you can do to make it a small change, and then they become bigger change outside by them. Yeah. So thank you.
Thank you.